Good morning, Hong Kong. My apology for not being there in person with you to share some thoughts on continuous manufacturing, a strategy to make high pharmaceutical quality affordable. Three A's of pharmaceuticals: availability, affordability, and assurance. These are the three A grades that the pharmaceutical sector must achieve. The conference today, Better, Safer, Cheaper Medicines, a 21st Century Mandate, essentially demands this. Continuous manufacturing, in and of by itself, is not likely to get us to all of those things in the very near future. But it is a vehicle which will be a motivation to get the industry to focus on the three A's of availability, affordability, and assurance. And here the context matters. And we are in the experience economy. And I would like to place my discussion on continuous manufacturing within this context of the experience economy and share with you how I believe FDA is going to promote continuous manufacturing and why continuous manufacturing will be an important component of availability, affordability, and assurance for medicines in America. Angle of repose to tipping point is a theme that I would like to build on. Recently, in 2015, FDA approved an ANDA with continuous manufacturing. That is a tipping point. That's unusual for a company to include a radical innovation, at least in the context of pharmaceutical sector, into an ANDA application. Vertex just did that. So the three important points here. Process analytical technology based continuous manufacturing with real-time release test platform for rapid product development, control strategy, and design space. Angle of repose is an important concept that deals with flow of powders. And in this particular situation, loss in weight feeders provided a way to titrate literally the excipients and the API in a way that provided a basis for continuous manufacturing and real-time controls through PAT or process analytical technology based measurements distributed throughout the manufacturing line. The tipping point here is important to understand that in real-time release, you're measuring and you're assessing quality attributes of many or a significant percentage of the batch, not just the compendial um, 6 tablets for dissolution or 10 tablets for content uniformity. This is a major tipping point because it takes us towards statistical process control and assures us continued monitoring to ensure stability and capability of manufacturing process for every critical quality attribute. Today, FDA Process Validation Guideline 2011 requires continued process verification. It is being enforced step by step, and statistical confidence and process stability and capability is an important element of that. Continuous manufacturing makes it feasible to achieve that very quickly, in addition to accelerating the drug development in terms of doing a multiple design of experiments to achieve control strategy in a most robust way and actually produce a design space. That is possible because of essentially a plug flow, in essentially a steady state type plug flow that occurs, and you can run many experiments in when you're in the development mode, and that is a major advantage to this. Today, multiple companies schools of pharmacy and engineering are passionately pursuing this opportunity with regulatory encouragement and acknowledgement of its potential for higher level of assurance. So essentially, FDA in particular has essentially suggested that going this route would be a higher level of quality assurance, not only because you're assessing a bigger part of the batch in terms of control, but you're achieving statistical process control. So in terms of the tipping point, Vertex, a cystic fibrosis drug, was approved in 2015 based on continuous manufacturing, and then J&J got an approval in a post-approval world for continuous manufacturing of drug products, which is based in Puerto Rico, and this was in collaboration with the University of Rutgers and other universities which are part of the CSOPs, Center for Structured Organic Particulate Systems. Many other companies are progressing in this direction. Novartis, Amgen, in terms of GSK, Pfizer, GSK, Eli Lilly, and many, many others. But I think it's also important to understand that at the end of 2016, in specifically December 13, 2016, the 21st Century Cures Act was signed into law. And it has a subtitle J, which is Domestic Manufacturing Export Efficiencies. And Section 2161 in that law grants for studying the process of continuous manufacturing has been recognized. So at the highest level, the push towards bringing manufacturing back to US and also building modern manufacturing systems is of great interest today. Let me step back and share with you the journey, what made this possible. At the beginning of the 21st century, at FDA, when I was there, we realized that the error rates in pharmaceutical manufacturing were very high. And there needed to be a solution to this. At that time, Schering-Plough, Warner-Lambert, all of them had serious GMP deficiencies and were under consent decree. And we held a number of advisory committee meetings at the highest level, the FDA Science Board, to understand what the challenges are. And here is just a sample of what came out of in those discussions. So these are two slides from Dr. G.K. Raju from MIT, which talks about challenges in solid dose manufacturing. So here are two examples of modified release dosage forms. Average cycle time 95 days, standard deviation of cycle time over 100 days. So when you see the standard deviation exceeding the average, you have chaos. Exceptions increase cycle time significantly. Exceptions increase variability significantly. The capacity utilization of system was low. It was so low that we couldn't put the number there. It was a bit embarrassing. It's about 10%. And if you look on the left-hand side, look at the different batches and how long does it take to resolve the out of specification and exceptions. Lots with exceptions, lots without exceptions, running on average 95-day cycle time, is very difficult to resolve. When the data was presented, it was too embarrassing to put the y-axis numbers, so I have added those on now. There were 600 days. So according to the law, if you don't get to the root cause within 30 days, I think you becomes a challenge. And often the batches are rejected and root cause is unknown. So invalidated out of specification rates were running very high. We were going through this motion of very low manufacturing capacity utilization, efficiency is low. We had drug shortages. We had all sort of problems at the beginning of the 20th century. And these were being noted primarily on solid dose manufacturing and also on aseptic manufacturing. So those were the two major areas where the problems were quite apparent. I'll focus my attention on solid dosage form for this discussion. So the Process Analytical Technology Initiative led to the CGMP for 21st Century Initiative, which led to the Pharmaceutical Quality for the 21st Century within the ICH umbrella. The PAT guidance, the ICH Q8, Q9, Q10 evolved from these efforts, and there was a significant recognition of what the Wall Street Journal called pharmaceutical industry has a little secret, and that being a industry or a sector which is advanced in drug discovery and development, but manufacturing lags behind. In the words of the Wall Street Journal, then pharmaceutical manufacturing was lagging behind those of potato chips and laundry detergent. That so happened that when I was at FDA, I had sent a team from FDA to get to know how Procter and Gamble makes the Tide detergent in a continuous manufacturing mode. So that was the reason why Wall Street Journal used those phrases. So what is a little secret? That is our material science, pharmaceutical material science in the physical domain, the functionality of materials, the attributes of physical performance are where the challenges are. So we start with certificate of analysis, which is generally a compendial test, and it has a lot of uncertainty in terms of solid state material attributes. It literally has no information on that. So pharmaceutical manufacturing is essentially a physical process, but we still focus on purity and impurity, which is necessary, but we don't focus on aspects related to the physical attributes. Then we have dissolution tests, particle size, and so forth. The life cycle stability and reproducibility of these tests in QC remains a concern today. We have fixed equipment and process parameters committed in submissions, difficult to change. So if there is a investigation to be done for a root cause to be found for an out of specification, how can you even do that? The system itself doesn't allow you to make changes today. Uncertainty, instability, and capability of measurement and manufacturing process. So we had a concept of process validation. You make the batches 3 times, and are those 3 batches representative of the commercial setting? No, answer was no. And then what happened was we had globalization. Much of manufacturing went to India and China. And India, in particular, the solid dosage forms are on the generics. You have variable empowerment and oversight. So the words such as FDA approved and validated are so powerful and frames the mindset. So people on the front line in India and China are then become accountable for OS results and so forth. And that leads to rationalization of data integrity issues and so many things. And that's really where the challenges come. So one of the blind spots that we have is we have remained in the compendial mindset since the 1800s. And we have not realized that large-scale manufacturing has progressed, and the concept of statistical process controls are 70 years old. They have been used outside pharma for more than 70 years, and pharma still doesn't understand how to do that right in many aspects. And that really is amazingly shameful situation. And today, as I look at this, not much progress has achieved. Uh, when you look at solid dose manufacturing, if I ask somebody, you're doing dissolution test, do you know what your type 2 error rates is? They have no idea. So do you know USP tests are not intended for batch release? And people look at me like I'm crazy. What nonsense are you talking about? And today, 80% of the warning letters that FDA is issuing has data integrity issues. For the last 10 years, we have depended on 40% of the supply comes from India for dosage form generic drugs, and massive data integrity issues have been unearthed now. And when I do some interviews in India, this is what happens. Oops, I have an out of specification result, say for dissolution test. I'm looking bad, so that's a bad experience. And the poor QC analyst has been told process validation is done, so quality is good. Test is prone to error. Batch failure means I made a mistake. And making a mistake in Asian culture is losing face. And it becomes easy to justify testing into compliance because mindset is data documentation is not critical. Compendial testing is sufficient. There's no issue here. And these are fundamental challenges. And when you look at that, go back to the compendia. Everybody uses compendia literally on a daily basis, but have never bothered to read how to use the compendia. So compendial disclaimer itself says that compendial test cannot be used for making a decision on your batch. And I'm not going to read that, but this is a fundamental issue which creates a problem. So over the past several years, uh, class 1 drug product recalls have been skyrocketing compared to the previous ones. The numbers look small, but if there is massive concern of data integrity, only those who are following the procedures would report these things. Others would have never reported. So this is a major concern. So more recently, Lawrence Yu and Mike Kopcha of the Office of Pharmaceutical Quality at FDA wrote a paper that the future of pharmaceutical quality is Six Sigma. That is, the error rate should be no more than 3.4 defects per million opportunities. And the path to get there is economic drivers, performance-based regulations, quality by design, advanced manufacturing technology, continuous improvement, and operational excellence. Six Sigma is rarely seen in the pharmaceutical sector. There are exceptions. I had an opportunity recently to write a paper on the Amgen's journey. I have no association with Amgen, but based on what Martin, who was the chief quality officer, has shared publicly, one could trace their journey quite nicely. And the journey started with the Wall Street Journal article that I suggested. Pharmaceutical industry has a little secret, and why investigations are important, and how Amgen improved their investigation starting in 2006 2012 to reach a Six Sigma for every critical quality attribute and every process parameter that they have. And this journey really becomes a milestone in the pharmaceutical sector. If you want to read more about that, I have provided a link there that I have written about it recently. The word experience is the emphasis for the discussion here. To work in a GMP sector, regulations such as 21 CFR 211.25 require people to have the right education, training, and experience. Does that reflect system orientation? Does that education and training experience have anything to do with quality system effectiveness? And what I'm concerned really is that need for assurance is increasing exponentially, and our systems are not improving at that rate. We are only improving marginally or linearly. So we are in the experience economy. What is this experience economy? I think we are experiencing pain. We are experiencing drug shortages. We are experiencing medical debt and bankruptcies in amazing ways, painful ways today. And the economy has moved on from selling goods, services to experience. So in the goods, you were manufacturers, then you became providers, then you became stagers. Just think about iPhone and Steve Jobs, how he staged the thing. Standardized, customized, personal, user, client, guest, attributes, benefit, sensation. And today we are talking about clinical trials in real world evidence and patient centric. These are important aspects. The healthcare system is moving towards pay for performance. Novartis recent approval, essentially agreement with the CMS in US to pay for the therapy only if it works, value-based pricing. So we are moving in that direction very, very quickly. And what we have understood is the clinical trial system, as Dr. Woodcock recently put it, is broken. We need new ways to collect and utilize patient data in real world. The nocebo and placebo effects have skyrocketed. Placebo effects exploding in the US. It was just a start. It's exploding everywhere now. And you have a mechanistic basis to understand the nocebo and placebo effect published in Science recently, as well as Neurology. And I think the whole idea of relying on one clinical set of clinical studies to make all decisions is also reflected in how we make decisions for generics bioequivalence, whereas we have to think in a more system therapeutic equivalence system perspective. So as the placebo nocebo effect has skyrocketed, and the situation in US has become generics for me but brand for you, and if color and shape of the generic pill changes, the adherence rate is going down, and FDA had to change its guidance. But it could not change its guidance completely because color is a trademark, and if you require the generics to have the same color, there won't be any generics because of the trademark regulatory things. And another example, which I believe is a canary in our coal mine, is levothyroxine. More recently, regulators around the world tightened potency specification and bioequivalence criteria. And in Europe, new formulations were introduced. We ignored the nocebo effects that could have happened. And what happened recently in France is amazing. As soon as a new formulation was introduced in France in March, the social media started buzzing, and the backlash increased, and patients complaining of adverse events and so forth for a product which was supposed to be more stable, more less variable. You had amazing nocebo effect that France had to bring back the old formulation. That's not just France. It happened in New Zealand. It happened in Germany, and people reacted in a negative way. So continuous improvement is a key function here. So when I look at the big picture, our economy has gone from industrial to service to experience. And those are some of the attributes of those in other sectors. In the new drugs, we have gone towards personalized, patient centric, real world, and pay for performance. Our therapeutic equivalence has been solely based on bioequivalence, and we have a challenge to build confidence in generics in the US. Biosimilars have just evolved, and how will they fit in there in terms of interchangeability, particularly in the US, is an open question today. But the biotech and the small molecule world have different legacies and experience. In the biotech world, complexity is appreciated and anticipated. In the small molecule world, especially with respect to solid dosage form, our complexity is underappreciated and not anticipated, and we make too many mistakes. So good practices such as use of SOPs are for complicated processes that are predictable given a set of starting conditions. Complicated is why we have education, training, and experience. And our education, training, and experience has not been adequate to meet the increasing complexity and so forth. So, what continuous manufacturing does, it brings a higher level of scientific and technological focus on manufacturing. It pushes the system more towards the review, which is more science based, and less towards GMP. It reduces the automation, takes away the concern of human error in a significant way. So the path forward that FDA is looking for is economic driver, that somebody who does continuous manufacturing should be able to claim a higher assurance of quality. Their regulatory scrutiny and their regulatory oversight should change. It should be different. So we need performance-based regulation, not the warning letters and not the way FDA regulations are. We need quality by design, advanced manufacturing technology, continuous improvement, and operation excellence. So this is how continuous manufacturing will be the door opener and push forward industry to achieve a higher operational excellence. The example I showed you about Amgen was not continuous manufacturing. Continuous manufacturing need not be the only path forward. You can achieve Six Sigma without continuous manufacturing, but you will have to pay attention to the complexity and to education, training, and experience, and all those pieces come together. But FDA has this opportunity now to leverage continuous manufacturing for the companies that will go in that direction, and to label them low risk so that their regulatory scrutiny would be different from rest of the. So higher level of quality assurance is not only achievable now, it is needed now, because we are in an experience economy where nocebo and placebo effects matter more than the bioequivalence criteria. So I hope this was useful perspective for you to think about, and I hope you enjoyed this talk. Thank you so much.